Alright, so I've done plenty of videos talking about Intel's Arc A770 GPU, just kind of messing with it, exploring it, talking about different aspects of the card, and just generally its place in the GPU market right now. But today, I want to talk about what the future of Intel's discrete GPU lineup could look like. To set some baselines here, we do know that these A-series cards do have a successor architecture and successor architectures that exist currently. I actually really like Intel's GPU naming scheme here. It's actually really clever and interesting in a way that like NVIDIA and AMD just haven't really been. So the actual architecture, like code name itself, goes from A to B to C to D. So A is starting first, D is last, and they are all based off of like RPG role-playing character types. The A series, it's based on the Alchemist architecture. And then the B series, which would be the next one, would be based on Battlemage, then Celestial, then Druid. So we know of the successor architectures, Battlemage, Celestial, and Druid. So that's at least 3 successor architectures at least named. Now, obviously, just putting a name on a slide doesn't really mean anything. But I want to talk about Battlemage in particular. Now, obviously, that's the next thing coming out, and we don't know anything about the other architectures, but I think Battlemage really is like more of a sign about what the long term for like the gaming GPUs are. That depending on how Intel handles the transition to a new generation, that could really say a lot about like how their GPU division works and kind of the trajectory of the way things are going. Now, I'm a little bit more excited for Battlemage than maybe any sort of new architecture from AMD and NVIDIA, just because, like, it's just something we've not really seen before, etc., etc. But really, other people around the internet seem really, really, really pessimistic about Battlemage, and I'm not sure why. There's just this bizarre cloud of pessimism around people that, well, Intel can't scale up performance as much as we want them to, that there's no way that Intel can go up the product stack fast enough to try to compete, that they're just kind of running in place and everything. Now, I think there definitely is a reason to have a healthy amount of skepticism regarding Battlemage. I mean, the A cards, the A770, everything like that, they're not the most particularly efficient use of their die space compared to competing GPUs. And Intel does have a lot of playing catch up to do for their delayed release schedule in general. But I really feel like I'm being gaslit by like people who are like GPU tech watching, because we just saw a company like double their performance in a single generation, and that was AMD. From early 2019, we saw the Radeon 7, which performed like a 1080 Ti at an absurd power consumption, and then late 2020, we saw the RX 6900 XT, which had double the gaming performance on the same node. Even assuming that if Intel doesn't improve like how like badly wasted some of the die space is on the A770 going to Battlemage, they're going to be on a newer node anyway, so they might just be able to brute force out like a massive performance jump. According to Intel, they want to put out Battlemage at some point in like Q1, Q2 of 2024, which yeah, okay, Intel. I mean, if I don't have enough reason to be a little burned over Intel GPU release dates with Arc being like a meme for like 9 months, I mean, they are cranking out nodes much faster than they used to, so hey, maybe they'll actually hit their deadline this time. I think even if Intel fumbles a little bit with the Battlemage release date, maybe pushes it back like a quarter or two, I don't actually think it would be that bad, just because I feel like the entire Intel GPU lineup has been saved by the grace of like AMD and NVIDIA just getting distracted by other things that neither company really seems particularly interested in like competing or lowering price points or anything. So really, I think Intel has a lot more room to make mistakes, not just because, oh, they're newer in the market, people are easier on them, but just because like nobody else really seems interested in trying. And so Intel really seems like they genuinely are trying, even if they're not as good as AMD or NVIDIA yet. Especially considering the rumors that AMD and NVIDIA might not even release new consumer GPUs until like early 2025. There's definitely a window there where Intel could seize the opportunity. Battlemage could potentially have a year to itself on the market, really outvaluing everything else and not having any real competition in its price bracket with the same amount of performance. Now, as for that top-end performance level, I definitely think Intel with Battlemage is definitely going to move a fair bit up market. I don't know if, like, they're gonna move quite into like the high end, like $700 price tier yet. I don't think it's unrealistic to expect that Intel could double performance. I think they learned a lot from Alchemist. I think they're definitely going to try to use the die space better. They're going to have access to a better node, but I definitely do expect a pretty big jump. And when I say double performance, I'm talking about something like the RTX 3090 Ti, maybe even like a little bit of a percentage faster, but at probably maybe something in that like $500 to $600 range. Like the max I could maybe see Intel charging would be like $550. And I think if they are getting to that performance level, they probably also are increasing the amount of different dies that they're making. They probably have a top-end die, a mid-end die, and then a low-end die, whereas with the A series, it's pretty much just been like 2 dies, at least for desktop. I feel like $500 is really like the next step that I think they could take in terms of like, hey, we're gonna massively like undercut both NVIDIA and AMD. I mean, NVIDIA is charging what, like $500 for a 4060 Ti 16 gigabytes? Intel like puts out a $550 B770 that performs like a 3090 Ti. The only card I think Intel really has to worry about right now would be the 7900 XT. The 7900 XT is just dropping like a rock in price. Like it bottomed out at like $700 US. So that could probably get maybe a little bit closer, but alternatively, prices could be mega screwed in 2024 because people keep talking about rumblings of like, yeah, you know, all these companies are buying up gaming GPUs for AI development. So we're going through the whole, you know, crypto, buying up a bunch of stuff. I think actually it would be kind of appropriate that on Intel's like 2nd generation that they come in and save the day for gamers, kind of like they intended to do with the A series before they kind of screwed that up. However, one thing I think Intel needs to worry about, like as they keep moving up market, is their driver performance. Now, I know that the drivers has been a big complaint ever since the A series has come out. It's gotten a lot better, but it seems like kind of a project that Intel will never be able to finish, just because AMD and NVIDIA have had like, what, 20-something years head start on them of programming all these games optimized specifically for their drivers. But I think once Intel starts charging like $650, maybe even $700 for GPUs, that I think that they're really going to start coming under a lot more scrutiny than that they already have. You actually have like serious, like, you know, max frame rate, like squeeze out every last drop of performance type of YouTubers. Like, oh, what's that one guy that talks about like the AM dip all the time and he's got like these ugly thumbnails and he talks about COD Warzone. This is a bit, by the way. I very clearly know the YouTuber's name. I'm just being very playful and facetious. While I do appreciate the internet and their investigations of ARC so far and just finding out like so many different games with so many different problems and stuff, I don't really think that we're quite at the point where like Hardware Unboxed, you know, found this CPU overhead issue on NVIDIA's drivers versus AMD. I don't think we're getting into like that deep dive of like ARC's issues quite yet. Now, my expectations for how the drivers are going to perform when Battlemage launches is that I don't think it's going to be way better than it currently is, but I still only expect it to be like the major popular games on DX9 and DX11, that once you start kind of venturing off into that path of like some of the more less popular games, that yeah, you're still going to be running into a lot of the same issues. Now, I am expecting at least one major new feature out of Battlemage, and that would be some form of like frame generation, like some ZSS frame generation or whatever. I think frame generation is like the next logical step after ZSS, and I think the Intel engineers have hinted that they're interested in doing frame generation, so I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I think what's interesting is that given the way that ZSS currently works is that it uses like the XMX like instructions on the ARC GPUs, that theoretically they could also maybe do like ZSS on like the XMX instructions maybe as well, instead of doing like the NVIDIA thing where they put it on optical flow accelerator. Maybe it might be possible that Intel increases the XMX performance on Battlemage, so that way you could run both, you know, ZSS and frame generation at the same time, but you don't lock out frame generation only to Battlemage. Maybe you could run frame gen on these A series cards, but you can't run it at the same time as ZSS. You have to pick one over the other. Again, I'm not an engineer. I don't know how any of this stuff works. I'm absolutely just spitballing and throwing ideas out. Now, I've talked a little about the future of ARC, but what about my future with Arc? Well, I definitely still expect to keep making videos about the A series. There's still like so many different ways and things that you can explore it. I've actually been daily driving the A770 a lot, and I'm not just gaming 24 hours a day or anything. So like it actually is like a pretty decent experience. I'm not exactly sure if I would do like the same thing all over again for Battlemage. Now I could sell the A770 and pay the difference to upgrade to Battlemage top SKU. And that's actually not really that ridiculous of an idea. Intel like canceled production of Founders Limited Edition of this card in the time that I've made any of these Intel Arc videos. I've actually been scouring eBay a fair bit, and I'm very surprised that this card is actually selling used at the MSRP that I bought it at. So I actually wouldn't be really losing any money from like, selling this, obviously aside from shipping and handling and all that. But the Battlemage lineup hasn't even been announced yet. There hasn't even been any like really like substantial rumors that I could trust. Be like, oh yeah, this would be like a good time or like an interesting upgrade. So I'm not really set in stone on anything quite yet. So anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Hope you liked it. I hope you guys like all the Intel Arc videos I've been making. It definitely has been challenging for me as a creative to try to implement all these benchmarks and technical things and like trying to figure out how to do them in these kinds of videos. So anyways, that's it, and have a good day.